I still had coffee burns on my face when she told me I should have apologized. We were standing in the middle of the living room, the smell of roasted turkey and betrayal thick in the air. My cheek was blistered and red, thanks to her idiot brother Josh and his childish temper. He poured boiling hot coffee on me in front of everyone at the family reunion because I called out his gambling problem. That bastard had the nerve to smirk after doing it. So I swung. One punch. Right in his crooked mouth. He went down like a sack of bricks. And then, silence. Her dad looked away. Her mom gasped like I'd shot the Pope. And Danielle? My wife? She didn't say a damn word. She walked past me, ice in her eyes, and grabbed her purse. You should take every insult and apologize, she said, not even looking at me. She got in the car with her family and left me standing there. Burned. Alone. That night I slept on the couch at our place in silence. Danielle didn't even come home. No calls. No texts. Not even a, hey, your face still on fire? So I did the only thing that made sense. I bought a one-way ticket to Paris. I swear to God, 5 minutes later, my phone lit up like it was possessed. 315 messages. Calls. Voicemails. From Danielle, her mom, even Josh. I didn't answer a single one. I just watched them come in, one after the other, while I finished the whiskey she always said was too harsh for real men. Her first text read, wait, please. It's not what it looks like. The second one, don't go. We need to talk. Then, I didn't want you to find out this way. Wait, find out what? That's when my gut dropped. You know that feeling when the floor disappears from under you? When your heart punches its way out of your chest because it knows something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. I opened her iPad. She always left it unlocked. Stupid move for a woman with secrets. The first thing that popped up was a text from someone named Nikki. Except, Nikki wasn't a girl. I scrolled up. He's leaving for Paris. This is our chance. I'll stay one more night just to make it seem real. But I'm done pretending. Can't wait to taste you again, babe. My hand was shaking. I read it over and over, hoping it was a joke, a mix-up, a bad dream. Anything but real. But it was real. Every message. Every emoji. Every lie. All of it. She wasn't just ignoring me because I hit her idiot brother. She was already gone, long before I booked that flight. She had a man waiting in the shadows. Or maybe several. I had no idea yet. But I would soon. The betrayal didn't cut me clean. It tore me open like a wild animal. She had smiled in my face, cooked me breakfast, kissed me like I was her whole world, while texting another man how she couldn't wait to be in his arms, his bed. Danielle had played me. And she played dirty. And in that moment, I made a promise to myself. I wasn't going to Paris to escape her. I was going to Paris to forget her. Or at least to bury whatever was left of the man she broke. But before I left, I needed answers. And payback. The next morning, I didn't pack. I didn't cancel the ticket either. I just sat there in the kitchen, staring at the iPad screen, rereading those filthy messages like I was trying to memorize pain. She came home around 9 a.m. No makeup, oversized hoodie, pretending to be innocent. Like nothing happened. Like I wasn't sitting there with digital proof that she'd handed her body and soul to another man like it cost her nothing. Hey, she said, barely glancing at me. I didn't answer. I just turned the screen toward her. Her whole face froze. Then the performance began. Oh my God, I can explain, she blurted, putting on that fake tremble in her voice. It's not what you think. Really? I asked, standing up slow. Because I think you're cheating on me with a guy who calls you babe and says you taste like strawberries. Her lip quivered. I wanted to believe it was guilt. But it wasn't. It was annoyance. Annoyance that she got caught. I was just confused, she whispered, trying to reach for my hand. I stepped back. Confused? You don't get confused into someone else's bed, Danielle. She snapped. You always make it about you. You punched my brother in front of our whole family like a caveman. You humiliated me. I laughed. I actually laughed. Oh, so this is my fault? He poured boiling coffee on my face, and I'm the problem? She crossed her arms, that smug, toxic look settling into her face. You didn't have to hit him. You could have taken the high road. But no, you had to show off, like always. That's when it clicked. She didn't feel bad about cheating. She didn't even feel bad I found out. She felt inconvenienced. You've been seeing him for how long? I asked. My voice was calm. Too calm. She hesitated, then smirked. 6 months, she said flatly. And he actually listens to me. I felt something cold crawl through my veins. Not anger. Not sadness. Something worse. Emptiness. I gave you everything, I said. I worked overtime. I planned dates. I held you at night when you cried about your job. I sat through dinners with your snobby parents and your cokehead brother. She shrugged. I didn't ask you to. You begged me to, I snapped. She rolled her eyes. You were convenient, Ethan, but you're boring. And you don't make me feel alive anymore. I should have screamed, broken something, raged, but I didn't. I just stared at her. For the first time really saw her. The cruelty in her eyes. The absence of remorse. The complete lack of soul. You're not even sorry, I whispered. For what? She scoffed. For not wanting to die of boredom next to someone who thinks Paris is an escape? That did it. I walked past her, grabbed my duffel bag, and threw in some essentials. Passport. Credit card. My dignity. You're really leaving? She called after me, laughing like it was some joke. Where are you going to go, Ethan? Who's going to take care of you? I turned at the door. Not someone who tastes like strawberries, that's for damn sure. She hurled something at me, her phone, I think. It cracked against the doorframe. I walked out without looking back. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I didn't go straight to the airport. Not yet. I needed to see him first. The guy behind the messages. The one she risked everything for, or maybe, more accurately, the one she threw everything away for. His name was Kevin. Kevin Randall. Real estate agent, mid-30s, gym body, in the emotional depth of a kiddie pool. I found his Instagram in under a minute, half-naked selfies, motivational quotes, and enough thirst trap photos to make me gag. And there she was, Danielle, liking every damn picture. He worked out of an office downtown, a sleek little place with glass walls and pretentious lighting. I waited across the street in my car, engine running, heart steady like a loaded gun. Around 1 p.m., he walked out. Sunglasses, perfect hair, shirt unbuttoned just enough to show off the gym time. I followed him without a word, not even knowing what I was going to do. Maybe I'd punch him. Maybe I'd just look him in the eye and say nothing, let silence do the damage. He turned into a smoothie shop. I parked, got out, walked in like I belonged there. He didn't even notice me at first. I stepped in line behind him, studying every movement, every gesture. He flirted with the girl behind the counter like it was muscle memory. She giggled, gave him a discount. He winked. I hated him. He turned around and almost bumped into me. Oh, sorry, man, he said. That voice. That same damn voice I imagined whispering to Danielle while she laid in my bed. You're Kevin? I asked. He looked confused. Yeah, do I know you? No, I said. But you know my wife. His eyes narrowed just a bit. Look, I don't. You do, I cut him off. Danielle, my wife. The one you've been sneaking around with for 6 months. Sending those poetic little messages. Real romantic stuff. He went pale. I stepped closer. Let me guess, she told you I was a monster? Controlling? Cold? That she was trapped in a loveless marriage? He didn't say anything. Coward. Did she tell you I cleaned up her puke last Thanksgiving because she drank too much wine and passed out in the driveway? Or how I covered for her when she forgot her mom's birthday? No. Still nothing. Don't worry, I said, stepping back. I'm not going to hit you. That would be too easy. I left him standing there holding a smoothie he didn't want anymore. As I walked out, my phone buzzed again. Danielle, please. I need to explain in person. Just one last talk. I wasn't sure why I answered. Maybe part of me wanted closure. Or maybe I wanted to see her lie again, one last time. We met at a diner off the highway. Neutral ground. She looked like a wreck. Hair messy, eyes red from crying. But her voice? Still sharp. Still full of venom dressed as charm. I made a mistake, she said, grabbing my hand across the table. I didn't flinch, but I didn't hold it back either. I was lonely, she went on. You were so busy. And Kevin he made me feel wanted. And now? I asked. She looked down. Now I feel disgusting. Like I ruined something beautiful. You did ruin it, I said. You stomped on it with heels and called it dancing. She wiped her cheek dramatically. But I still love you. That's when I leaned in. No, Danielle. You love that I'm the guy who always cleaned up your messes. You love that I'm dependable, forgiving, predictable. But you don't love me. You love what I do for you. She sat there in silence. I paid the bill and stood up. I'm not your safety net anymore, I said. You burned that down. I walked out. Didn't look back. When I got to the airport, I sat at the gate and stared at the boarding pass. She didn't follow me. No final chase through the terminal. No last tearful apology. Good. Because I was already gone. Paris wasn't magic. It wasn't some healing sanctuary with cobblestone streets and fresh baguettes that made betrayal disappear. But it was quiet. It was far. And for a while, that was enough. I stayed in a cheap apartment above a bakery that smelled like butter and cinnamon. The bed creaked, the radiator hissed, and every night I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how the hell I let it get this far. Some mornings I'd walk for hours, letting the city swallow me. No one here knew me. No one looked at me like the idiot husband who got cheated on. Here, I was just a guy. A stranger. A ghost. Danielle kept texting. First every hour. Then once a day. Then silence. I deleted her number. But I couldn't delete the memories. They haunted me in the quiet moments. Her laugh echoing in my head. The way she used to fall asleep on my chest, fingers curled into my shirt like I was her anchor. All lies. All of it. One night, I sat on the balcony with a cigarette, something I hadn't touched in years. It burned slow, just like the truth had. And somewhere between the second drag and the third, I realized something brutal. She never respected me. Not once. She loved control. She loved comfort. But respect? That was reserved for men like Kevin, temporary thrills that made her feel powerful. I remembered the way she smiled when she was caught. The way she rolled her eyes. How she said I was boring. That word cut deeper than any blade. Because I hadn't been boring. I'd been consistent. I showed up. I stayed. I fought for us when she had already left emotionally. She didn't want love. She wanted chaos. Attention. A new stage every month where she could be the star. And I was just a backdrop. A week passed. Then two. I started eating again. Writing in a notebook. I didn't know what I was writing at first, just thoughts, fragments. Then it turned into something more. The story of a man who woke up too late, who loved too much, who trusted the wrong woman. There was no happy ending in those pages. But there was honesty. One night, a message popped up on my old backup email. From Danielle. Subject, your niece. I opened it without thinking. You probably won't respond, but I had to tell you. Your niece keeps asking about you. She misses you. Maybe you could FaceTime her? Just once. Cheap move. Pulling at the only piece of family I ever really loved. Her way of keeping her claws in me, softening the edges. I closed the laptop. I wasn't ready. 2 more days passed, and then a knock came at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hadn't given my address to anyone but the landlord. I opened the door slowly, and there she was. Danielle. Hair pinned back. No makeup. Just her, standing there with a bag over her shoulder and eyes that tried to look soft but reeked of guilt. My stomach turned. What the hell are you doing here? I asked. She gave a weak smile. I just wanted to talk. In person. One last time. I didn't move. Didn't invite her in. You flew to Paris to talk? I didn't know what else to do, she said. You disappeared. I panicked. Good, I said flatly. She blinked. Can I come in? No. Her mouth tightened. Ethan, please. I've changed. I laughed. Loud. Bitter. You changed in 3 weeks? What happened? Kevin didn't like the real you either. Her face twisted. That's not fair. Fair. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. You think you deserve fairness now? She looked away. I made mistakes. No, I said. You made choices. Repeated once. You chose him. You chose lies. You chose to humiliate me, and now you're standing here hoping what? That I'll take you back. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I miss you. I didn't flinch. You miss control. You miss the guy who paid your bills and kissed your forehead and made your life easy. But you never loved me. Not really. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. You should leave, I said. Before I stopped being polite. She hesitated, then stepped back. Goodbye, Ethan. I didn't answer. I just went back inside, locked the door, and for the first time in weeks, I breathed. I thought seeing her again would break me. I thought I'd unravel the moment I heard her voice in person, that maybe some small, pathetic part of me would cave just to feel wanted again. But instead, the second that door clicked shut behind me, I felt lighter. She was gone. Really gone this time. No more second-guessing. No more sleepless nights wondering if I should have fought harder. No more lies dressed up in perfume and fake apologies. She stood at my door, and I let her walk away. That was the beginning of my healing, not in some poetic, cliché way. No, it was raw and ugly. Healing isn't clean. It's not yoga and tea and forgiveness. It's remembering things you wish you could forget, reliving moments that feel like knives under your skin, and still choosing to move anyway. The next day, I finally answered my niece's FaceTime call. Her little face lit up the screen and damn near shattered my chest. "Uncle Ethan, where have you been?" I smiled. Genuinely. "Had to go fight some dragons, kiddo." She giggled. "Did you win?" "Still fighting," I said, "but I'm getting good at it." She asked if I'd be home for her birthday. I told her I'd try. I didn't say yes. I wasn't ready, but I didn't say no either. That was progress. After we hung up, I took a long walk through Montmartre. I watched the painters, the lovers, the drunk kids singing off-key at cafes. And for the first time in forever, I didn't feel like an outsider. I was just another man trying to piece himself back together. One night, maybe a week later, I got drunk at a bar down the street. Not the kind of drunk that makes you sad. The kind that loosens your jaw and makes you honest. The bartender, her name was Elise, asked what brought me to Paris. "Got cheated on," I said bluntly. She raised an eyebrow. "Brutal." "Yeah." I caught her texting the guy she was screwing behind my back. Then she blamed me. Elise didn't gasp. She didn't pity me. She just poured another drink and said, "So what did you learn?" The question caught me off guard. I sat with it for a minute. "I learned," I said slowly, "that love without respect is just manipulation with nice lighting." She smirked. "You should write that down." "I did," I said, tapping the notebook I kept in my jacket. Page 24. After that night, I started writing more. Not just pain. Reflections. Warnings. Honest confessions. I wrote about how Danielle used to fake tears to get out of fights, how she always needed someone to validate her, how she never once said thank you for the things that mattered. I wrote about how I let her chip away at my confidence piece by piece, how I ignored the red flags because I believed loyalty meant tolerating abuse in silence. And I wrote about the moment I realized I didn't hate her anymore. I pitied her. Danielle would never be happy, not because she couldn't be, but because she didn't want the kind of happiness that requires effort, honesty, and depth. She wanted shortcuts, excitement, secrets. She'd keep burning bridges just to feel the warmth. And I was done playing the firewood. One morning I stood at the edge of the Seine, holding my wedding ring in my palm. It was cold, heavier than it looked. I didn't toss it in the river. That would have been too dramatic. I walked to a local pawn shop and sold it. Used the money to buy a train ticket to Italy. Because if there's one thing betrayal taught me, it's that moving on isn't a moment, it's a choice. One you make every day until it finally feels like breathing again. And that day? That day I breathed like a man who had nothing left to lose. And everything ahead of him. Florence hit different. The city had this quiet beauty, like it knew pain but refused to be defined by it. That's what I wanted to be, wounded but not ruined. I stayed in a small guest house owned by an old couple who didn't speak much English but made the best damn espresso I've ever had. Every morning, I'd sit in the courtyard, notebook in one hand, coffee in the other, and I'd write. Not about Danielle anymore. Not directly. She became a symbol, a shadow, a lesson wrapped in red lipstick and venom. I started noticing people again. Faces, voices, laughter that didn't feel like background noise. For months, all I'd heard was her lies, her mock sympathy, her insults disguised as concern. Now there was space in my head again. One afternoon, while sketching the view from Piazzale Michelangelo, I got a call. Blocked number. I almost didn't pick up, but my gut told me this wasn't random. I answered. Silence for a beat. Then her voice. "Ethan." "Danielle." I sighed. "How did you even get this number?" "Your brother." I told him it was an emergency. Of course. My brother always had a soft spot for her. That's what she did. She made people fall for the version of her she wanted you to see. "I don't have anything left to say," I muttered, already regretting answering. She sniffled. "Crocodile tears." I knew the sound by now. I wanted to let you know that Kevin's gone. He cheated on me with his assistant." I laughed. It came out raw and real. "You don't say." "It's not funny, Ethan." "No, it's hilarious. You finally got a taste of what it's like." "Must sting, huh?" "I didn't call the fight," she whispered. "No. You called because your circus act collapsed and you're looking for the guy who used to carry the tent poles." Silence. "I'm not coming back, Danielle." More silence. "Ethan, do you hate me?" I let that sit for a moment. "No, but I don't care anymore." "That's worse." I ended the call. No goodbye. No dramatic pause. Just silence on my end for once. It didn't feel triumphant. It felt like closure. That night, I walked down to the river and thought about how I used to love her so deeply that I would have forgiven anything. That version of me scared me now, how desperate I was for her approval, how blind I was to the disrespect, how I thought pain was part of the package. She didn't break me. She just revealed the parts of me that were already cracked. That call was the last time I heard her voice. She never reached out again. Maybe she finally got it. Maybe she didn't. I didn't care. I stayed in Florence longer than planned. Then Rome. Then Lisbon. My passport started collecting stamps the way her lies used to fill my weekends. I wasn't running. I was rebuilding. Quietly. Fully. On my own terms. There was no grand revenge. No final speech to make her regret everything. Life did that for me. She had to live with herself. That was punishment enough. One night in a bar in Lisbon, I met someone. Her name was Naomi. She was American, traveling solo, and had a laugh that didn't sound like it was hiding anything. We talked. We drank. We danced on a rooftop like fools. But when she leaned in at the end of the night, I didn't kiss her. Still patching the pieces, I told her. She smiled. Then let's not rush it. And we didn't. I don't know where things with Naomi will go. Maybe nowhere. Maybe everywhere. But for the first time in years, I'm not trying to prove I'm worth loving. I know I am. Danielle taught me a lot. How people can smile while cutting you open. How love without respect is just control. How walking away isn't weakness, it's self-preservation. So here I am. Somewhere in the middle of Europe, writing my truth in a battered notebook, drinking espresso that tastes like survival. And if someone out there is reading this, stuck in a love that feels like slow death, leave. You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not asking for too much. You're just finally seeing her for who she is. And that's the first step toward freedom. The flight back home was quiet. Not emotionally, I mean, physically quiet. No crying babies, no turbulence, just the low hum of engines and the occasional cough in the cabin. It felt symbolic, like life was giving me a smooth landing after the chaos I'd been flying through. Coming back wasn't about unfinished business. It was about seeing the wreckage with my own eyes. My apartment, my city, the street corners we used to walk together. I needed to see them again, not to reopen the wounds, but to prove they'd finally healed. I stepped into my old place and half expected to see one of her cardigans hanging off the back of the chair, or one of her mugs on the counter, "Boss babe," it used to say. She left that one behind. Of course she did. Even in her absence, she still found ways to mark territory. I boxed up the last few remnants of her that I hadn't bothered touching before. An old perfume bottle. Some photo booth strips. A scarf she never wore but always kept around, just in case. I didn't throw them out right away. I put them in a box labeled past. That's all it was now. My brother came over the next day. Brought beers, didn't say much, just sat next to me on the couch and stared at the TV like we were teenagers again. "I shouldn't have given her your number," he said after a while. "You shouldn't have," I agreed. Then I handed him a beer. "But you did." "Doesn't matter now." He nodded. That was enough. That's the thing about brothers. You don't need to dissect it. You just sit in the aftermath together. I went back to work a week later. I expected whispers, side eyes, the usual office gossip. But no one said anything. Either they didn't know, or they pretended not to. And I was fine with that. I didn't want sympathy. I didn't want advice. I wanted normal. But normal had changed. I walked different now. Talked different. I wasn't angry, but I wasn't naive anymore. I recognized red flags quicker. I didn't entertain small talk with energy vampires. And I didn't tolerate disrespect, not even the polite kind. Danielle messaged me one last time. A long, bloated email filled with philosophical nonsense and pseudo-growth language. I've been doing inner work. I understand myself now. I wish we could have grown together, but I wasn't ready. I'm learning self-love. I'm in therapy. I've realized my childhood trauma. I didn't finish it. I didn't need to. Because I'm not her project anymore. I didn't reply. I went to dinner with friends instead. Real ones. The ones who stayed silent when I needed space but never disappeared. The ones who knew better than to say, "She didn't deserve you," because they knew I already knew that. I sat across from my friend Jake, who once told me during college, "The right one won't make you beg to feel enough." At the time, I laughed it off. Now I knew he was right. At the end of the night, I walked home alone. But it didn't feel lonely. It felt peaceful. And you know what I realized? Closure doesn't come from apologies. It comes from acceptance. From finally seeing the person not as you wish they were, but as they are, and choosing yourself anyway. Danielle was a storm. Beautiful, loud, and destructive. But I am the one who rebuilt the house. So here's my advice if you're still reading this. Don't wait for them to be sorry. Don't wait for them to change. Don't waste years translating their cruelty into misunderstanding. They knew what they were doing. You know who you are now. Walk. Close the door. Burn the damn bridge if you have to. But never, never go back to someone who laughed while you bled. The seasons changed while I wasn't watching. I remember standing on my balcony one morning, coffee in hand, and realizing the air didn't bite anymore. The trees were greener. The sky was softer. For months, I'd been measuring time by heartache, but suddenly, the world had moved on, and I was finally catching up. The pain? Still there, in pieces. Little echoes. A song she used to hum. A familiar scent on someone passing by. But pain isn't a cage anymore. It's a reminder of who I was, of what I survived. I look back now, not out of longing, but clarity. Danielle was the storm that forced me to rebuild stronger. Not smarter, not colder, just realer. I know myself now in a way I didn't back then. I see red flags before they're embroidered into my heart. I no longer call disrespect compromise. I don't beg to be chosen. I am the choice. I don't hate her. I don't love her either. What I feel is distance, like she happened in a past life. One where I kept trying to convince a mirror to reflect something that was never there. There's peace in letting go of people who never cared enough to hold on. Sometimes I still get questions. You ever talk to her again? No, I never will. She ever apologize for real? Does it matter? I don't need an apology to forgive her. I don't need closure from the person who shattered me. Closure came when I realized I didn't need her explanation to move forward. If I could go back and talk to the version of me who caught her cheating, who read those messages, who felt his soul get ripped in half in the quiet of their shared kitchen, I'd tell him this. You're going to be okay. More than okay. You'll cry. You'll scream. You'll lose sleep. You'll stop believing in love for a while. But then, you'll breathe again. You'll laugh. You'll write. You'll meet new people, not to replace her, but to remind yourself of what connection is supposed to feel like. Safe. Honest. Whole. You'll realize that the most powerful thing a man can do after betrayal isn't to get revenge. It's to rebuild. Better. Braver. Cleaner. You'll walk into a room and not look over your shoulder. You'll sleep like a man who doesn't worry about someone lying beside him. You'll love again, not because you need it, but because you're ready. So this is my final chapter. Not because the pain is gone, but because it no longer controls the narrative. Danielle taught me how low someone can go behind your back. But I taught myself how high a man can rise after he's been broken. If you're holding on to someone who makes you feel small, unworthy, or invisible, let go. The world is waiting on the other side of that goodbye. And it's beautiful here.
I never thought I'd wake up with a knife pressed to my throat, staring into the twisted grin of one of my wife's lovers. The blade was cold, biting into my skin just enough to send a shiver of terror down my spine. He leaned in close, his breath hot and reeking of cheap cologne, a sick smile stretching across his face. His voice was low and dripping with mockery as he whispered, "Well, now you're a real cuckold. Watch and see how she really likes it." In that instant, my life became a nightmare. A sharp, vivid horror that was somehow more real than anything I'd ever experienced. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. My whole body felt frozen under the weight of this nightmare. And there, just beyond him, stood Laura, my wife, the woman I'd built my life around, the one I'd trusted more than anyone in the world. But she wasn't watching with horror or even pity. No, she looked at me with something darker, something chillingly cold, as if I were just a stranger she'd trapped and humiliated for her own entertainment. Laura's lips curved upward, a slight smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth, as if she were relishing every second of my misery. It was a twisted tableau, one I never could have imagined in my worst dreams. My chest tightened, my throat dry, my mind reeling with a storm of emotions I could barely process. Anger, betrayal, fear. But more than anything, the deep, stabbing realization that this wasn't some mistake, wasn't some misunderstanding. Laura wanted this. She was part of this sick spectacle, and she was enjoying it. "Come on, Daniel," she sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. "This is what you deserve. Watching while someone who actually knows how to treat a woman takes your place." The words cut deeper than the knife ever could. Every syllable dripped with venom, a raw disdain I hadn't even realized she'd been hiding. Her eyes, once warm, filled with love and laughter, now held only disdain, a darkness I'd never seen before. They seemed to dare me to react, to do something, to prove her right, to show her just how broken I was under the weight of it all. Couldn't look away. I was trapped, humiliated, powerless. A spectator in my own life, forced to watch as my own wife reveled in my downfall. Their laughter filled the room, echoing in my ears, the sound twisting into something cruel and mocking. Every chuckle, every sneer, every whispered insult seemed designed to strip me of my dignity, to tear down whatever remained of my self-worth. Something inside me snapped that night. A cold, hard rage took hold, like an iron fist tightening around my heart. It wasn't the hot, blinding anger I'd felt before. This was something different, something deeper, more relentless. It was the kind of fury that doesn't burn out, that doesn't fade. Digs in, settles, waits. When they were finally done, when the room fell silent and the mocking sneers had faded into echoes, I was left alone in the wreckage of what had once been my life. The silence was thick, suffocating, pressing down on me as I lay there, my mind reeling, struggling to understand how things had come to this. And as I stared at the ceiling, the faint scent of their mockery still lingering in the air, I made a promise to myself. I would never let this go. I would never forget this moment. And I would make sure they regretted every single second of it. They would pay. Every single one of them, Laura and the men who thought they could walk into my life and take what was mine. They thought they'd broken me, but they hadn't. They'd only awoken something they couldn't control, something they'd wish they'd never provoked. In that dark, silent room, I vowed to reclaim my life piece by piece, and to make sure they all remembered that night. Only this time, from the other side. As the days passed, the scene replayed in my head like a broken record. That night haunted me. Every mocking laugh, every smug look. It wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation on a level I hadn't known existed. I became obsessed with every tiny detail, each one carving deeper into my mind, fueling the rage simmering inside. I started digging into Laura's life, peeling back every lie she'd spun. I'd always known she was good at hiding things, keeping up appearances. But now I could see through it all. The constant girls' nights out, the work trips she'd insist were essential. Every excuse was a cover for her affairs. And it wasn't just one guy. No, Laura had been busy, lining up multiple affairs as if she had nothing to lose and nothing to fear. There was one night in particular that pushed me over the edge. I was following her again, keeping my distance as she left our home, supposedly to catch up with an old friend. I trailed her downtown, watching her meet another guy, a stranger in his 30s, confident, with that same smug look I'd come to hate. I watched as she greeted him, all smiles and flirtation, oblivious to the fact that I was watching. But it wasn't enough just to watch. Not anymore. I took out my phone and snapped photos, one after the other, recording everything. It was time to build my case, not just in a courtroom, but in my own mind. Every photo felt like another piece of ammunition, a weapon I'd used to remind her of the hell she put me through. It wasn't about taking it to lawyers or court. Not yet. I wanted to confront her, to unleash the fury I'd bottled up since that night with the knife. Finally, one evening I couldn't hold back. She came home late, acting like nothing was wrong, gliding in as if she were doing me some favor by coming back. But this time, I was waiting for her in the living room, arms crossed, all evidence spread out on the coffee table in front of me. Laura froze as she stepped into the room, her smile dropping when she saw me. "What's this?" she asked, a flicker of uncertainty flashing in her eyes. "What do you think, Laura?" I said, my voice cold and steady, though my heart was racing. "Look a little closer. Recognize anyone in these pictures?" She looked at the photos, her eyes widening as she realized what they showed. But instead of guilt or shame, that look of smugness returned, almost like she was proud of herself. "Oh, so you've been spying on me now?" she sneered, crossing her arms as if she were the victim in this whole mess. "Real classy, Daniel. Guess you've got nothing better to do with your time." Her reaction caught me off guard. I had expected excuses, maybe an apology, something that showed she felt at least a shred of remorse. But instead, she laughed, a low, mocking sound that made my blood boil. "Is this what you've been doing? Stalking me? Taking pictures?" she taunted, circling me like a predator sizing up its prey. "I thought you had more self-respect than that." I clenched my fists, every nerve in my body on edge. "Self-respect? You've got a lot of nerve, Laura," I said through gritted teeth. "All those nights you said you were with friends, or on some work trip. All of it was a lie, wasn't it?" She shrugged, a smirk playing on her lips. "So what if it was? It's not like you had anything better to offer. I found real men, Daniel, men who knew how to treat me. You think following me around like some pathetic investigator makes you look strong? It makes you look weak." That was it. Her words cut deeper than any wound, each one a reminder of how little she cared. I couldn't believe I had ever loved this woman, ever thought she was my partner in life. As she turned to walk away, as if dismissing me and my pain like it was nothing, I felt something snap inside me. "You're not going to just walk away from this, Laura," I warned, my voice low, vibrating with barely contained fury. "Oh, really?" she scoffed, looking back at me with a sneer. "And what are you going to do about it? You can't even stand up for yourself." That night, I realized that revenge wasn't just a fantasy anymore. It was a promise. After Laura's sneer and cruel dismissal, something in me shifted permanently. This was beyond heartbreak or betrayal, it was war. She had humiliated me, mocked my loyalty, my love, and my very sense of self. She had no remorse, no shame. She'd made it clear that she saw me as nothing more than a tool she could manipulate, a shadow in her life, too weak to matter. But she was wrong, so wrong. I spent the next few days in a daze, my mind racing as I thought of every way I could make her and her so-called real men pay. I started tracking them, not just to catch her in more lies, but to learn everything about these guys. Their routines, their habits, where they hung out. Each day, I felt the fire of anger and determination grow hotter. One night, as I was following one of her lovers, a guy named Brad who worked at a local gym, I saw my chance. He was on his way home, strolling down a dark, quiet street, looking smug as ever. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I watched him walk, that arrogant swagger making my stomach churn. I parked, grabbed the baseball bat I'd started carrying with me, and quietly followed him down the sidewalk. When I was close enough, I called out his name. He turned, surprised to see me, and in that split second of hesitation, I swung the bat as hard as I could. The crack of the bat against his ribs echoed in the night, and he collapsed, gasping in pain. "That's for every lie you helped her tell," I hissed, standing over him, watching him writhe. I wanted to do more, to finish what I'd started, but the sight of him clutching his side, coughing and gasping was enough. He'd remember this night for a long time. He'd know that I wasn't some silent bystander, some cuck in their sick game. No, I was here, and I wasn't going anywhere until they'd all paid. Brad was out of commission for months after that. Broken ribs, a punctured lung, the works. But I wasn't done yet. He was just one piece of this twisted puzzle. There were still others. Other men who thought they could disrespect me, who thought they could step into my life and take what was mine. But I knew I had to play it smart. The satisfaction I'd felt in dealing with Brad was intense, almost addictive, but I knew I couldn't keep using brute force. I needed to be more calculated, more deliberate. Laura and her lovers had pushed me into the shadows, into the dark corners of my own mind, but now I was going to make those shadows work for me. Over the next few weeks, I put my plan into motion. Laura continued her games, sneaking around with her other boyfriends, acting as though I didn't know. But I was always watching, always one step behind her, cataloging every secret, every move. My next target was a man named Travis. He worked at a trendy downtown bar, and I'd seen him with her a few times, arms wrapped around her like he owned her. He was tall, slick, with that cocky charm Laura seemed to adore. But he had one weakness. He liked to drink after his shift, usually alone, nursing a whiskey or two before heading home. One night, I decided to pay him a visit. I showed up at the bar, sitting a few seats away, watching him out of the corner of my eye. He didn't recognize me, too focused on his drink and himself. I waited until he'd had a few, then made my move, sidling up next to him. "Rough night?" I asked, pretending to be just another guy looking for some conversation. He looked over, bleary-eyed, and shrugged. "Same as any other," he mumbled, his voice slurred. I nodded, pretending to sympathize, pretending that I was just another guy trying to blow off steam. "I know the feeling," I said, leaning in a little. "Women can be tough to handle, huh?" He laughed, taking another sip. "You're telling me, got a little lady waiting at home?" "Something like that," I replied, forcing a grin. "They always want more, don't they?" His face lit up, like he'd found a kindred spirit. "You're telling me, I got this one chick married, you know? Husband's clueless. Doesn't know what he's got on his hands." He chuckled, clearly proud of himself. "She's wild, man. If her hubby only knew." I clenched my fist under the bar, barely able to hold back my anger. He had no idea he was talking about me. No idea that the man he was laughing with was the husband he was mocking. But I kept my face calm, nodding along, pretending to laugh. "Sounds like a thrill," I said, keeping my tone casual. "How long you think you can keep it up?" He shrugged. "As long as I want. I'm doing her a favor, really. Poor guy probably couldn't handle her anyway." That was it. That was the moment I knew there was no turning back. I left the bar shortly after, leaving Travis to his drink, unaware of what was coming for him. I had a plan for him, a more elaborate one, something that would hit him where it hurt. And Laura, she was going to feel every ounce of the pain she'd put me through. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was justice, and I was just getting started. In the days after my encounter with Travis, I could barely contain the anticipation building inside me. I wasn't acting out of rage anymore. This had become something colder, sharper. Every day, I woke up with one purpose in mind: to bring them down one by one, to show Laura that I was no one's fool. I had laid low after dealing with Brad, careful to keep myself off the radar. But now it was time for phase 2. Travis was about to learn that there were consequences for mocking me, for disrespecting my life as if it was nothing. Laura had brought this upon herself, and if she thought I was weak, she was about to discover just how wrong she was. That night, I waited outside the bar where Travis worked, cloaked in the darkness of the nearby alleyway. The streets were quiet, the air cool, and I could hear the faint hum of music from inside the bar. Travis's shift was almost over, and I knew his routine by heart now. He'd walk out, lock up, and head to the dive bar down the street for his usual post-work drinks. He'd get comfortable, relaxed, maybe even brag to a stranger like he had to me. But tonight, he wasn't getting that chance. I'd set up a small device in his car, a jammer that would disrupt his cell signal. If he tried to make a call, he'd find nothing but dead air. It was a simple trick, but enough to keep him isolated, to make him feel the vulnerability he never thought he'd have to confront. At around 1:30 a.m., Travis finally came out, stumbling slightly as he locked up the bar's door behind him. He didn't notice me as he made his way to his car, fumbling for his keys, his senses dulled by hours of serving and drinking. As soon as he opened the car door, I moved in. "Hey, Travis," I said, my voice cold and steady. He looked up, startled. His eyes narrowed as he tried to place me. "Do I know you?" he slurred. I smirked. "Oh, I think you do. You were just bragging about me the other night. Remember? The poor, clueless husband?" His eyes widened, realization dawning on his face. "Wait, you're—" I didn't give him time to finish. I lunged forward, grabbing him by the collar and slamming him against the car. His head hit the metal with a dull thud, and he winced, struggling to push me away, but he was too slow, too drunk to react properly. "Yeah, I'm that husband," I said, my voice low and filled with the months of anger and betrayal I'd bottled up. "You thought you could walk into my life, take what's mine, and laugh about it? Well, laugh now, Travis. Laugh all you want." He squirmed, trying to free himself, but I tightened my grip, pressing him harder against the car. "Listen, man," he stammered, panic in his eyes. "I didn't mean anything by it. I swear. I didn't even know who you were. "Oh, you knew," I replied, my voice dangerously calm. "You knew she was married. You just didn't care." He started to say something, but I cut him off, my fist connecting with his jaw in a solid punch that sent him reeling. He slumped against the car, holding his face, a look of pure terror spreading across his features. That was more like it. This wasn't the cocky guy from the bar, laughing about the women he'd stolen. This was a scared little boy who'd finally realized he'd messed with the wrong person. "You know, Travis," I said, crouching down to look him in the eye, "this could have ended differently. If you'd shown an ounce of decency, maybe we wouldn't be here. But you didn't, and now you're going to live with the consequences." He tried to pull himself up, breathing heavily, his hands shaking. "Look, I'll leave her alone, all right? I'll never see her again." "That's not good enough," I replied, a cold smile spreading across my face. "You didn't just take her. You took my pride, my dignity. You treated me like a joke. And for that, I'm going to make sure you remember this night for a long, long time." I leaned closer, my voice barely above a whisper. "If I ever see you near her, near my life again, I'll make sure that broken jaw is the least of your problems. Do you understand?" He nodded frantically, his eyes wide with fear. Yeah, I get it, man. I swear." Satisfied, I stood up, taking one last look at the pathetic figure slumped against his own car. I didn't feel guilt, not even a hint of remorse. I felt powerful, in control. For the first time in months, I wasn't the victim. I walked away, leaving Travis to nurse his wounds and lick his bruised ego. It was a warning, a reminder that he wasn't invincible. And as I disappeared into the shadows, I knew that my message had been received. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Over the next few days, I kept my distance, careful not to draw any attention to myself. Laura hadn't even noticed anything unusual. Her life went on as if nothing had changed, as if her games and lies weren't about to catch up with her. But I had something special planned for her, something she wouldn't see coming. The final piece of my revenge was about to fall into place. One evening, I made sure she'd find me sitting at home, calm, composed, waiting for her to return. When she walked through the door, I gave her a smile, one that must have looked unsettling because she paused, giving me a wary glance. "What's with the look?" she asked, tossing her purse onto the couch. "Just waiting for you," I replied, standing up and motioning for her to join me at the kitchen table. She rolled her eyes, looking like she was preparing herself for another one of our arguments. But this time I was prepared. I had evidence, a plan, and I knew exactly how this conversation would end. "Laura," I said calmly, watching her closely, "let's talk about honesty." She looked at me with a raised eyebrow, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Oh, really? You're the one who's going to lecture me about honesty?" "Oh, I think it's long overdue," I replied, holding her gaze. "Because I know everything, Laura. Everything." For the first time, I saw her composure falter. Laura's smirk faded, her face hardening as she realized this wasn't just another one of our fights. I watched her carefully, savoring the flicker of fear that finally crossed her eyes. She'd spent months hiding behind lies and excuses, but tonight, there was nowhere for her to run. "Daniel," she said, forcing a laugh, trying to regain control. "What's gotten into you? You're acting crazy." I leaned back, folding my arms as I took a deep breath, letting my voice stay calm, almost casual. "Crazy? Maybe. But it's amazing what you discover when you're paying attention. You see, I know all about Travis, Brad, and the others. I know about every single man you've been sneaking around with." Her face blanched for just a moment, and I knew I had struck the nerve I'd been aiming for. She opened her mouth, then closed it, clearly trying to find a way to twist this back on me. "Don't try to deny it, Laura," I continued. "I have photos, texts. I know where you were last Tuesday and who you were with. So, don't waste my time with excuses." She dropped the act, her face twisting with anger. "So what? You think you're some kind of detective now?" she sneered, folding her arms defiantly. "Following me around, taking pictures like some pathetic creep? Who's the loser here, Daniel? It's not me. Her words were like venom, but I refused to let them sting. I stayed silent, letting her rant, watching her unravel. She didn't realize she was only digging herself deeper. "You're so predictable," she went on, laughing bitterly. "That's your problem, Daniel. You're boring. You're weak. You were never enough for me, and I had to find someone who could actually satisfy me." I clenched my jaw, refusing to rise to the bait. Her words were meant to hurt, to provoke, but I wasn't about to let her take control. Instead, I leaned in, locking eyes with her. "You think I'm weak?" I asked quietly. "You think you can walk all over me without consequences? Because you're wrong, Laura. Dead wrong. You have no idea what I'm capable of." She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, please. You're not capable of anything. That's why I'm here with you, Daniel. You're predictable. You wouldn't dare do anything that might actually change things." I leaned back, a cold smile forming on my lips. "Is that right?" I asked. "You think you're untouchable? Because Brad might have something to say about that." Her face froze, and for the first time, real fear flashed in her eyes. What did you do?" she stammered. "Oh, nothing much," I said casually, shrugging. "Just a little conversation. Maybe a broken rib or two to remind him who he was dealing with. He's had plenty of time to think about his choices in that hospital bed." She took a step back, horror spreading across her face. You're lying. You're not." "Oh, I assure you, I'm very serious," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "And if you think that was extreme, you haven't seen anything yet." I could see her trying to process this, the realization dawning that I wasn't the pushover she'd always thought. She tried to mask her fear with defiance, but her trembling hands gave her away. "You're insane," she spat, glaring at me. "You think you can scare me with some empty threats? I don't need you, Daniel. I never did." I shook my head, laughing softly. "No, Laura, you needed me more than you ever realized. I was the one who held this whole charade together. But now I'm taking back control. And believe me, things are going to change." Her mask cracked as she finally broke, screaming at me, hurling insults, trying to tear me down in every way she could. But I stood there, unmoved, letting her exhaust herself. She was unraveling, revealing the person she'd become, and I realized that the woman I once loved was long gone. When she finally stopped, breathing heavily, I met her gaze, calm and unflinching. "It's over, Laura. Whatever game you thought you were playing, it's done." "Oh, you think you're done with me?" she shot back, desperation in her voice. "You think you can just walk away? You'll regret this, Daniel. I'll make sure of it." I raised an eyebrow, amused by her threats. "No, Laura, I'm not the one who's going to regret this. I'm moving forward, and you'll be nothing but a painful memory." Her face contorted with rage, but I didn't care. I walked past her, heading for the door, feeling the weight lifting from my shoulders. For the first time, I felt free. This was the closure I needed, the end of a toxic chapter that had consumed me for far too long. As I opened the door, she called after me, her voice desperate, frantic. "Daniel, don't walk away from me. Don't you dare." But I didn't look back. I stepped out into the night, leaving her there, her voice fading behind me. I'd spent enough time suffering, enough time being her pawn. I was done with her games, done with the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal. Outside, the cool night air filled my lungs, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I could breathe. The weight of her deceit, the anger, the resentment, all of it was beginning to fade, leaving me with a strange, unfamiliar sense of peace. I knew that my life wouldn't magically return to normal. There would be scars, memories that would haunt me, reminders of the darkness I'd walked through. But I also knew that I had come out stronger, sharper, and wiser. I'd lost a part of myself to her betrayal, but I'd gained something far more valuable: freedom. And in that moment, I promised myself that I would rebuild, that I would rise above this, and that I would never let anyone else take control of my life again. As I walked away, leaving Laura and everything we had behind, I realized that the worst was over. I'd fought my demons, faced my fears, and found a strength I hadn't known I possessed. Walking away from Laura that night was supposed to be the end. I thought leaving her there, consumed by her own lies and anger, would finally give me peace. I'd survived the nightmare. I'd walked out on my own terms. But something about the silence that followed felt too still, too quiet. I couldn't shake the feeling that the storm wasn't truly over. I kept to myself for the next few weeks, focusing on rebuilding the pieces of my life that she'd torn apart. I moved into a small apartment across town, stripped of everything that reminded me of her, ready to start over. It was supposed to be a fresh beginning, a clean slate, but Laura had different plans. Started with messages, dozens of them, flooding my phone every day. At first, they were apologetic, claiming she missed me, that she'd made a mistake. She tried every angle, begging me to forgive her, to come back, claiming we could work through this. It was almost pathetic, but I didn't fall for it. After everything she'd done, I knew there was no going back. I ignored her, deleting her messages, blocking her number. Then came the unmarked letters slipped under my door. They started as apologies, desperate pleas for attention. But when she realized I wasn't responding, her tone changed, taking on an edge of anger. She accused me of ruining her life, of abandoning her, of taking away everything she'd worked for. And as the weeks passed, those letters grew darker, filled with words of rage and resentment, each one like a twisted attempt to drag me back into her web. One night, I came home late from work to find her waiting outside my apartment, her figure dimly lit by the street lamp, shadows casting her face in an eerie light. She was dressed up, hair and makeup done as if she was going somewhere special, but her eyes were wild, darting from side to side as if she was searching for something. "Daniel," she said, her voice strained, almost desperate. "You can't just leave me like this." "Laura," I sighed, the exhaustion weighing on my words. "We're done. It's over. You need to move on." Her expression twisted, a flicker of fury flashing across her face. "Move on? After everything we had? You think you can just walk away and leave me with nothing?" I took a step back, realizing just how far she'd fallen. "I didn't leave you with nothing, Laura. You destroyed everything we had. That was all you." She lunged forward, grabbing my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "You don't get it," she hissed. "You can't just erase me from your life. You're nothing without me, Daniel. Nothing." I pulled away, shaking my head. "You're wrong. I've already moved on." The word struck a nerve, and for a split second, I saw a flash of vulnerability. But then, as quickly as it came, it was gone, replaced by a cold, detached expression I didn't recognize. "Fine, Daniel," she said quietly, stepping back, her voice eerily calm. "If that's what you want, then that's what you'll get." She left, disappearing into the night, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of closure, like maybe this was really over. But the relief was short-lived. A few days later, I woke up to find a threatening message spray-painted across my apartment door. "You'll regret this." The words were bold, angry, dripping red like fresh blood. A chill ran through me as I read them, realizing that Laura's obsession wasn't over. If anything, it was just beginning. That night, I lay awake, every shadow in the room seeming to stretch toward me, every sound magnified by the quiet. I knew Laura had gone off the deep end, but this was something else, something darker, as if she were determined to drag me down with her. Over the next few days, strange things started happening. My car tires were slashed. My mailbox was filled with unmarked letters, each one filled with sickening accusations, twisted fantasies about how she'd reclaim me. And then there were the mysterious phone calls in the middle of the night, silent, each one lasting just long enough for me to hear her faint breathing on the other end before she'd hang up. I started losing sleep, the constant paranoia gnawing at me, fraying my nerves. It was like she was everywhere, haunting every corner of my life. I'd escaped her, left her behind, but she refused to let me go. And each day, her actions grew bolder, more unpredictable. One night, I came home to find my apartment door ajar. I froze, a wave of dread washing over me. I hadn't left it unlocked. I was certain of that. Slowly, I pushed the door open, stepping inside, my heart pounding as I scanned the room. Everything looked normal at first glance. But then I saw it, a photograph pinned to the wall. It was a picture of me, taken in my own apartment while I was asleep. Beneath it, scrawled in Laura's unmistakable handwriting, were the words, "You can't hide from me." The chill that ran through me was like nothing I'd ever felt. She'd been here, in my home, watching me while I slept. My heart pounded as I ripped the photo off the wall, the realization settling in that I was dealing with someone far more unhinged than I'd ever imagined. I didn't sleep that night or the next. Her presence lingered, every shadow, every creak in the floor sending my heart racing. It was as if she'd become a phantom, a haunting reminder of the life I'd left behind but couldn't fully escape. Desperate, I decided to take things a step further. I filed for a restraining order, gathering every piece of evidence, the messages, the letters, the photos, to build my case. But as I stood before the judge, describing the torment Laura had been putting me through, I could see the skepticism in his eyes. "Are you sure you're not overreacting, Mr. Coleman?" he asked, almost dismissively. "She broke into my apartment, Your Honor," I insisted. "She's stalking me. I need protection." But despite my pleas, the restraining order was denied. There wasn't enough concrete evidence, they said. Apparently, a few letters and phone calls weren't enough. I left the courthouse feeling defeated, the weight of her presence bearing down on me heavier than ever. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, every nerve on edge, waiting for the next message, the next reminder that she was still out there, watching. And as I drifted off to a restless sleep, I heard it, a faint whisper, like a ghost haunting the darkness. "Good night, Daniel." Her voice echoed softly through the room. I shot up, my heart racing, eyes scanning the shadows. But there was no one there, just silence. The whisper haunted me for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice, soft and mocking, lingering in the silence. It was enough to drive anyone to the edge, and I could feel myself slipping. Laura's obsession was escalating beyond anything I'd anticipated. She'd become a ghost in my life, lurking in the shadows, reminding me that she wouldn't let go. I decided it was time to take things into my own hands. Since the restraining order was denied, I knew I couldn't rely on the system to protect me. I had to take control. I couldn't keep living in fear, looking over my shoulder every moment, wondering if she was waiting for me just around the corner. The next day, I hired a private investigator. His name was Rick, a grizzled, no-nonsense guy who had seen it all. He listened as I laid out the whole twisted story. The affairs, the threats, the letters, the break-in. He didn't judge, didn't ask too many questions. When I showed him the photo she'd left on my wall, he nodded, his expression hardening. "You're not dealing with someone who's just angry," he said, flipping the photo back and forth. "This is obsession, Daniel. This is dangerous. Tell me something I don't know," I muttered, the exhaustion in my voice betraying just how much this was wearing me down. "I can track her movements, set up surveillance," Rick offered. "Get you proof that she's harassing you. Maybe with solid evidence, we can convince the court to act." "Fine," I replied, relief washing over me. "Just keep me posted. I want to know everything."
The night it all started, I was sitting in our living room, nursing a glass of bourbon, the sound of the late-night sports game filling the air. My wife, Emily, had been working late for the third time that week. I didn't think much of it at first. I trusted her, or maybe I was too naive to see the signs. When she finally walked in, I noticed something off. Her makeup was smudged, her blouse slightly untucked, and the faint scent of cologne that definitely wasn't mine lingered in the air. "Hey, honey," she said casually, tossing her bag onto the couch. Her voice was sweet, too sweet. That syrupy tone she only used when she was hiding something. I didn't press her then. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was just tired. But deep down, a crack had formed, small but undeniable. That crack was about to shatter my entire world. The discovery. The next day, I found her phone buzzing on the kitchen counter while she showered. Normally, I wouldn't snoop. But something compelled me, call it intuition, call it paranoia. I picked up her phone and saw a message preview. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again. My stomach dropped. The sender's name was saved as Office Supplies. Seriously? Did she think I was that stupid? My hands shook as I unlocked her phone. She never bothered to change her password. I scrolled through the thread, my blood boiling with every new message. Explicit texts, steamy photos, even a meetup scheduled for later that week. And it wasn't just one guy. No. There were at least 3 different men she was juggling, each more brazen than the last. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I thought I might throw up. How long had this been going on? Was our entire marriage a lie? A sudden twist. Before I could fully process the betrayal, there was a loud knock at the door. Frowning, I set her phone down and went to answer. 2 hulking men stood on the porch, their faces unreadable. "You're James?" one of them asked, his voice low and gravelly. "Yeah," I said cautiously. Before I could say another word, they grabbed me by the arms and dragged me out of the house. I struggled, cursing and demanding answers, but they were too strong. They shoved me into the back seat of a black SUV, slamming the door shut behind me. "What the hell is this?" I yelled, but neither of them answered. We drove in silence, the tension in the car so thick it was suffocating. My mind raced with possibilities. Was this about Emily? Did one of her lovers find out about me? After what felt like an eternity, we pulled up to a house I didn't recognize. They hauled me out of the car and dragged me inside. And there she was. Emily. Sitting on the couch with a glass of wine in hand, looking as calm and collected as if she were hosting a dinner party. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, glaring at her. She smirked, that same infuriatingly sweet smile she'd given me the night before. "Oh, James. Don't be so dramatic." The bombshell. Emily gestured for me to sit down, but I refused, my fists clenched at my sides. "What is this, Emily? Who are these guys?" "They're friends," she said nonchalantly. "And they're here to help you understand the new rules of our marriage." I blinked, stunned. "New rules? What the hell are you talking about?" She sighed, as if I were a child who just couldn't grasp basic arithmetic. "We're not getting a divorce, James. I've drawn up a prenuptial agreement that allows me to have as many lovers as I want. Otherwise, I'll take everything from you. The house, the cars, your savings. Everything." Her words hit me like a freight train. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't the woman I married. This was a stranger, cold, calculating, and cruel. "You can't be serious," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "Oh, but I am," she replied, her smile widening. "And you're going to agree to it. Because if you don't, I'll make sure you walk away with nothing." I stared at her, my mind reeling. How had it come to this? How had the woman I loved turned into this monster? But then, something inside me snapped. I forced myself to take a deep breath, steadying the storm of emotions threatening to consume me. "Of course, dear," I said, my voice calm and measured. "But first, we're going to make some changes." Her smug expression faltered for the briefest moment, and I felt a flicker of satisfaction. She thought she had me cornered, but she had no idea what was coming next. Emily's smug smile returned as she sat back, swirling her wine like a queen on her throne. The 2 men loomed near the door, their arms crossed like bouncers in a bad movie. But I wasn't afraid anymore. Anger had replaced my fear, fueling a newfound determination. "All right, Emily," I said, keeping my voice calm. Let's talk about these changes. She raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting my composed reaction. Oh. I didn't think you'd be so agreeable, James. This might be easier than I thought. I smiled tightly, my mind racing with possibilities. I just want to understand everything before we move forward. You know, for clarity. Emily leaned forward, her predatory gaze locked on me. It's simple. You stay married to me. I get to see whoever I want, whenever I want, and you keep pretending to be the perfect husband. You keep your job, your reputation, and, if you play nice, you might even get to keep a sliver of your dignity. Her words were venomous, each one sharper than the last. The sheer audacity of her ultimatum made my blood boil, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I nodded slowly, as if considering her terms. And these two? I gestured to the men who had manhandled me into the house. Insurance, she said with a wink. In case you decided to get any funny ideas. I forced a laugh. Funny ideas? Me? Never. Emily looked almost disappointed at my lack of resistance, as if she wanted a fight just to gloat over her victory. But I wasn't about to give her that satisfaction. Not yet. That night, I played the part of the defeated husband. Back home, Emily went to bed early, probably texting one of her lovers good night. I sat in my office, staring at the computer screen, my mind a whirlwind of plans. Revenge wasn't just a desire, it was a necessity. I started small, combing through our finances. Emily had always been careless with money, and it didn't take long to uncover a few hidden accounts she thought I didn't know about. One in particular caught my attention, a hefty sum she'd been siphoning away for God knows how long. Perfect. Next, I turned my attention to her phone. She was predictable, and I knew she'd use the same weak password for everything. Within minutes, I was scrolling through her emails, social media accounts, and even her cloud storage. The things I found made my stomach churn. Explicit photos, messages arranging secret rendezvous, even a group chat with her so-called lovers where they laughed about me behind my back. I clenched my fists, the anger surging again. But I couldn't let it consume me. Not yet. Every bit of this filth was evidence, and I was going to use it. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. Emily waltzed into the kitchen, dressed to kill in a sleek black dress, her lips painted a bold red. Big day at work? I asked, sipping my coffee. Something like that, she replied, barely looking at me. I smiled, the kind that didn't reach my eyes. Have fun, dear. As soon as she left, I went to work. Step 1 was contacting a lawyer, a shark named Rebecca Carter. She came highly recommended and had a reputation for tearing apart cases like Emily's for breakfast. Your wife doesn't stand a chance, Rebecca said after I showed her everything I'd gathered. She's dug herself into a hole so deep, she'll need a ladder to see daylight. I grinned for the first time in days. Good. Let's make sure she doesn't find one. The next step was more personal. Emily had humiliated me, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. That night, while she was working late again, I invited one of her lovers, Paul, over to the house. Paul was an idiot. It didn't take much to lure him in, a fake text from Emily's number was all it took. When he arrived, he looked confused to see me standing there instead of her. James, he stammered, his eyes darting around like a cornered rat. Come on in, Paul, I said, my voice dripping with fake cheer. We need to have a chat. He hesitated, but I grabbed his arm and pulled him inside, slamming the door behind us. What the hell is this? He demanded. I stepped closer, towering over him. You've been sleeping with my wife, Paul. And tonight, you're going to help me fix that mistake. His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Save it, I snapped, shoving a folder of printed evidence into his chest. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to end whatever disgusting little thing you have with Emily, and you're going to send her a message saying you're moving out of town. Permanently. If you don't, I'll make sure every client at your company gets a detailed email about your extracurricular activities. Paul's jaw dropped. You wouldn't. Try me, I said, my voice ice cold. He caved, of course. They always do. Within minutes, he sent the text, his hands shaking as he typed. When Emily came home that night, she seemed distracted, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Everything okay? I asked innocently. Fine, she snapped, but her furrowed brow said otherwise. I hid my smile behind my coffee mug. This was just the beginning. By the time the week was over, I'd dismantled Emily's web of lies piece by piece. Her lovers vanished, her secret accounts drained, and her reputation teetering on the edge of collapse. But I wasn't done yet. Not until she knew what it felt like to lose everything. The following days felt like a carefully orchestrated dance. I was the calm, collected husband on the surface, everything from my tone to my actions perfectly rehearsed. But underneath that, every muscle in my body tensed with the anticipation of what was to come. The day Emily would understand what it felt like to have her world crumble as mine had. She had no idea what was coming. It was a Saturday morning when I made my move. Emily had spent the past few days completely distracted, as if she was trying to piece together the fragmented bits of her life that had once seemed so perfect. Little did she know, those pieces were all slipping out of her grasp, one by one. I waited for her to leave for her business brunch with her friends, which, of course, was another one of her lies. She had been using the excuse of meeting her business partner all week, but I knew the truth. The only thing she was meeting was another lover. Once she was gone, I executed the next phase of my plan. It wasn't hard to track down Emily's lawyer. He was a sleazy, pompous man who never seemed to care about anything beyond his own wallet. I'd had dealings with him before, but now, I had something much more valuable, leverage. With a few well-placed calls, I managed to get the man alone. He didn't know what hit him. You've been helping Emily hide assets, haven't you? I said, my voice cold and controlled. The lawyer's face twitched. I don't know what you mean. Cut the crap, Robert, I interrupted, slamming a stack of papers onto the table in front of him. I've got every document proving you've been laundering money for her, money that's meant to be in our joint accounts. His eyes widened. That's illegal. You can't. I already called the authorities, I said, watching him squirm. You'll be lucky if you don't end up in prison. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to cancel all of Emily's legal papers, including her prenuptial agreement. And if you don't, I'll make sure you take the fall for everything. Robert paled, his throat visibly constricting. You can't do this. Oh, I can, I replied, my voice so calm it felt like it came from someone else. You can start by signing these papers. And you'll also need to contact her immediately, telling her that any further legal proceedings are null and void. Understood? He nodded, defeated. Back at home, I was preparing for the inevitable confrontation with Emily. I knew she would try to put on a brave face, to act as if everything were still under her control. But this time, I wasn't just her betrayed husband, I was the man who had rebuilt himself into something she hadn't anticipated, a force to be reckoned with. When she finally walked through the door, I could see the change in her. She was on edge, her usual confidence replaced by a tightness around her eyes. I knew something was wrong. She had received the news. James, she started, her voice shaking slightly, what is all this? Why are you acting like this? What have you done? I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. What do you mean, Emily? You seem a little rattled. Did something happen at your brunch? Did you get caught in your web of lies? Her face flushed. What did you do? I didn't answer right away. I just watched her, letting the silence hang in the air like a thick fog. Then, when I spoke, my words were deliberate. I had a chat with Robert. Your lawyer. Funny thing, seems you've been laundering money through him for months now. You know, the stuff you thought you could hide from me? That wasn't as well hidden as you thought. Her mouth dropped open. That's a lie. You. I stood up, cutting her off. Stop. I've got everything, Emily. The accounts. The evidence. The proof. Your little scheme is over. Her face went pale. You can't do this. I'm not the one who's wrong here. You're right about one thing, I said, my voice suddenly cold. You're not the one who's wrong here. I'm done. All your lies, all your betrayal, it's all coming to an end. I moved toward her, slowly, savoring the moment. Her eyes flickered with panic, and I saw the mask of confidence crack. What are you going to do, James? You're nothing without me. You'll lose everything. I'll make sure you. I interrupted her with a hard laugh. You're really going to threaten me after everything you've done? After you sold me out for every man you've been with? After you dragged me through the mud for years? No, Emily. You're the one who's going to lose everything. And just like that, I saw it in her eyes, the fear. She tried to salvage the situation by pleading, by claiming she still loved me and that we could fix things. But the truth was undeniable, her love had been a lie. And the only thing she cared about was herself. As the evening wore on, the final documents I had arranged began to come through. Emily's prenuptial agreement had been nullified, her finances frozen, and her secret accounts exposed to the authorities. The house was now legally mine. And worst of all for her, Robert had signed the papers, severing any remaining ties to her illegal activities. By the time I spoke again, it was too late for her. You'll never be able to control me again, I said softly, finally feeling the weight of the past months lift from my shoulders. Everything's over, Emily. You're alone now. Her face twisted with fury, but there was nothing she could do. She knew it was true. I had taken everything from her, just as she had taken everything from me. As she stormed out of the house that night, I stood by the window, watching her go. For the first time in years, I felt free. Not because of the revenge I had exacted, but because I had finally taken control of my own life again. The chapter with Emily was over, and I was finally ready to turn the page. The house felt unnaturally quiet after Emily stormed out, her threats and curses still echoing faintly in my ears. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of her or her manipulations. Instead, I felt relief, mingled with an unfamiliar sense of purpose. I thought this was the end of the chaos, but I underestimated just how deep Emily's web of deceit truly ran. The next morning, I awoke to an unexpected knock at the door. When I opened it, 2 uniformed police officers stood on my porch. James Carter, one of them asked, his voice clipped and professional. Yes, I said cautiously. We need to ask you a few questions regarding allegations made against you by your wife, Emily Carter. My stomach dropped. What kind of allegations? She's claimed that you've been physically abusive and that you've embezzled funds from your shared accounts, the officer said, his expression unreadable. I blinked, momentarily stunned. Emily was relentless. Even after I'd dismantled her plans, she was still trying to claw her way back by any means necessary. That's absurd, I said firmly. I have evidence that disproves everything she's saying. The officers exchanged a glance. We're not here to arrest you, Mr. Carter. But you'll need to provide that evidence soon. In cases like these, things can escalate quickly. They handed me a card with their contact information and left. As the door clicked shut behind me, I stood there, my mind racing. Emily had just declared open war. I immediately called Rebecca, my lawyer. Her tone was calm and reassuring. "James, we knew she might try something like this. Don't worry, we'll handle it. Gather everything you've already collected, and I'll prepare a formal response." Hanging up the phone, I couldn't help but feel a pang of unease. Emily's lies had already spread far and wide. What if this was just the beginning? Later that afternoon, I decided to confront Emily directly. She wasn't answering her phone, but I had a pretty good idea where she'd be, at her favorite upscale bar, where she often met her so-called business partners. When I walked in, it didn't take long to spot her. She was sitting in a corner booth, laughing with another man, a younger, sharply dressed guy who looked as slimy as she was. The sight made my blood boil, but I forced myself to stay calm. I approached the table, and her laughter froze mid-note when she saw me. "James," she said, her voice laced with mock surprise. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk," I said, ignoring the man beside her. She smirked, leaning back in her chair. "I don't think there's anything left to say." "Cut the crap, Emily," I snapped, my voice low but firm. "You called the cops on me. You're trying to ruin my life even after everything you've done." "Why?" Her smirk widened. "Because you deserve it." The man beside her shifted uncomfortably, clearly not wanting to be involved in whatever was unfolding. "I'll, give you two a moment," he muttered before slipping away. Once we were alone, Emily leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with malice. "You really thought you could take everything from me and walk away unscathed? James, you're a fool. I don't lose." I met her gaze, my own resolve hardening. "You already have, Emily. You just don't know it yet." Her confident facade faltered for a brief moment, but she quickly recovered. "We'll see about that," she said, grabbing her purse and walking away without another word. When I got home that evening, I found an envelope waiting for me on the kitchen counter. There was no return address, and the handwriting was unfamiliar. Curious, and a little wary, I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a printed message. "You think you've won, but you don't know the whole story. Ask Emily about Crescent Heights." My heart pounded as I read the note again. What the hell was Crescent Heights? Was this another one of Emily's games, or was someone else involved? I spent the next few hours digging for answers. Crescent Heights turned out to be a luxury apartment complex on the other side of town. I didn't know anyone who lived there, and as far as I knew, neither did Emily. But something about the name felt significant, like a puzzle piece I couldn't quite place. Unable to shake the feeling that this was important, I decided to go there myself. The building was as extravagant as I'd expected, with marble floors and an air of exclusivity. I approached the front desk, trying to look casual. "Hi, I'm here to visit a friend," I said, giving my best fake smile. The receptionist barely glanced at me. "Name and unit number?" I hesitated. Emily Carter?" The receptionist's fingers flew over her keyboard. After a moment, she nodded. "Penthouse suite. Top floor." My stomach churned. Emily had a penthouse? Since when? And why? The elevator ride to the top floor felt like an eternity. When the doors finally opened, I stepped out into a lavish hallway lined with expensive artwork. At the end of the corridor was a single door, slightly ajar. I approached cautiously, my heart racing. Inside, I could hear voices, Emily's unmistakable tone and another voice, deep and commanding. Pushing the door open, I stepped inside. The scene before me made my blood run cold. Emily was standing in the center of the room, facing a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, with a sharp suit and an air of authority that screamed danger. "You're not supposed to be here," Emily hissed when she saw me. The man turned slowly, his piercing gaze locking onto mine. "Ah, you must be James," he said, his voice calm but unnerving. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded. The man smiled faintly. "Let's just say, I'm someone who knows more about your wife than you ever will." Emily shot him a warning look, but he ignored her. "Tell me, James," the man continued, his tone almost mocking. "How does it feel to realize you've only scratched the surface of her secrets?" I stood frozen in the doorway, my heart pounding in my chest. Emily was behind me, her face twisted in fury, but it was the man who had my full attention. His calm demeanor, the way he sized me up like I was just another piece on his chessboard, sent chills down my spine. "Who the hell are you?" I repeated, my voice steadier this time, though my mind was a storm of questions. The man smiled, but it wasn't a smile of warmth, it was cold, calculated. "My name is Michael Archer," he said, his tone dripping with authority. "And I've known your wife much longer than you think." Emily's eyes shot daggers at me, but she didn't say anything. I didn't know what to make of the situation. Why was Emily with this man? Why was he so confident? And more importantly, what did he mean by, "known her longer than I think"? "I think it's time you understood everything," Michael continued, taking a step closer, his presence overwhelming. "You've been living in a fairy tale, James. Your wife, Emily, she's not who you think she is. Not by a long shot." I looked back at Emily, who had gone pale, her lips trembling with anger. She wasn't even trying to defend herself anymore. She knew, deep down, that her secrets were slipping from her grasp. "Tell me what's going on," I demanded, feeling a new wave of fury rise within me. "What is this? Some twisted game between you two?" Michael ignored me, his eyes focused entirely on Emily now. "I told you this would catch up with you," he said quietly, almost as if speaking to himself. Then he turned to me. "James, it seems your wife has been playing a very dangerous game, and you, unfortunately, have been the pawn. Enough of this." Emily snapped, finally finding her voice. "You need to leave, James. Now." Her tone was sharp, but I saw the cracks in her bravado. This was no longer her battle to win. I didn't budge. "I'm not going anywhere until I get some answers. You owe me that much, Emily." She flinched at my words, but I was done with her games. I was done with the lies, the betrayal. Michael sighed, as though dealing with a child. "James, what I'm about to tell you will shake you to your core. I suggest you listen carefully. Your wife, Emily, is not just a woman with a few lovers. She's been part of something much bigger, something far more dangerous than you ever imagined." I could feel the blood draining from my face. "What are you talking about? Do you really think all of this, the money, the secrets, the web of lies, was just for fun?" Michael asked, his voice now cold and calculating. "No, James. Emily is tied to a network. A network of power, influence, and illegal activities. Money laundering, bribery, corporate espionage, she's been involved in all of it. But you were too busy being the perfect husband to see it." My world tilted. I couldn't breathe. "No, this can't be true." But Michael didn't flinch. "Oh, it's true. You've only seen the tip of the iceberg. Emily has been playing both sides for years, getting what she wants by manipulating men like you into thinking she was just another pretty face. But now, the game's over, and it's time to face the consequences." I turned to Emily, disbelief written all over my face. "Is this true?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She didn't answer immediately. For a moment, it seemed like she was considering her options, whether to lie, whether to twist the truth as she had done so many times before. But eventually, she looked at me, her eyes cold, almost pitying. "Yes," she said, her voice tinged with disdain. It's true. But it doesn't matter anymore, James. You can't stop it. I felt the weight of her words hit me like a ton of bricks. My whole life, my whole marriage had been built on a lie. Emily had been using me, manipulating me, while I blindly played along, thinking I was the one in control. Michael leaned in, his voice lowering to a whisper. But there's one thing you still don't know. Emily hasn't been working alone. She's been working for someone much more powerful than you or I. And if you continue to push, if you continue to expose her, you're going to wish you hadn't. My body went cold. Who is she working for? I asked, the question burning in my throat. Michael didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced at Emily, who gave him a slight nod. Her boss, Michael said slowly, is someone who controls more than just money. They control people. They control entire industries. And you, he said, his eyes narrowing, are about to become a problem for them. The words sank into me like daggers. There was no way out of this. No easy way to undo the damage. My wife was tangled in something far bigger than I could have ever imagined. And now, I was in over my head. Emily's smile was faint but triumphant. I told you, James. You never stood a chance. I always win. I stepped back, my thoughts racing. What the hell had I gotten myself into? How could I fight back against something so far-reaching, so dangerous? Michael smirked. Don't worry, James. You'll figure it out eventually. But by then, it may be too late. I felt a sharp, sickening wave of dread wash over me. What's going to happen to me? I whispered, not sure I even wanted to know the answer. You'll find out soon enough, Michael replied coolly. But I'll tell you this, your life, as you know it, is over. As I left the penthouse, the weight of Michael's words hung in the air like a suffocating fog. I couldn't fathom what lay ahead, but one thing was clear, Emily had been playing a much bigger game than I could have ever imagined. And I was about to learn just how dangerous it could be to cross the people behind her. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? My mind kept replaying the scene in the penthouse, Michael's words echoing in my ears like a drumbeat, growing louder with every passing minute. Your life is over. That was all I could hear. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the cup of coffee in front of me. I hadn't touched it. My hands were shaking. I didn't know what to do with all of this. There was no roadmap for something like this, no instructions on how to handle your entire world coming crashing down because the woman you trusted more than anyone else turned out to be a criminal mastermind working with some shadowy organization. But if there was one thing I'd learned from years of dealing with Emily, it was that nothing was ever what it seemed. And I wasn't about to let this go down without a fight. I picked up my phone and dialed Rebecca. I had to talk to someone, to figure out what my next move should be. After a few rings, she answered. James? What's going on? Are you okay? Her voice was steady, but I could hear the concern behind it. No. I'm not okay, I replied, my voice cracking despite myself. I need your help. It's bigger than I thought. Emily, she's tangled up in something huge. Something dangerous. There was a long pause on the other end. What are you talking about? Rebecca asked, her tone now sharp. I quickly filled her in on everything I'd learned, the money laundering, the illegal deals, the powerful figure pulling the strings. You're telling me she's been working with someone connected to all of that? Rebecca's voice was incredulous. Yeah, I said, feeling the weight of the truth settling in like a stone in my chest. And they've made it clear that if I keep pushing, I'll be next. I don't know what to do, Rebecca. This is bigger than anything I've ever dealt with. Another pause. James, you need to be careful. I know you're angry, but you need to be smart about this. Whoever is behind Emily is not someone you want to mess with. But if you want to fight back, we can figure something out. I'll start digging into everything I can. You need to keep your head low for now. Don't make any rash decisions. I sat back, letting her words sink in. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt like I wasn't alone in this. Thanks, Rebecca. I don't know what I'd do without you. Just don't do anything crazy, she warned. We'll get through this, but we have to be careful. I hung up and stared at the phone in my hand. There was a heavy silence in the house now, the kind that comes when everything you once thought was solid is crumbling around you. I couldn't trust Emily anymore. Hell, I didn't even know who she was anymore. The woman I had married, the one I had shared my life with for so many years, was gone. What stood before me now was a stranger who had no qualms about destroying me to further her own ambitions. But I wasn't going down without a fight. The days passed in a blur. Rebecca worked tirelessly behind the scenes, digging through legal records, bank statements, anything she could find that might lead us to the people Emily was working with. I, on the other hand, kept a low profile. I wasn't about to make things easier for her or her mysterious contacts. Then, out of nowhere, I received a call from an unknown number. I hesitated, but something told me this wasn't just another dead end. Hello? James Carter? The voice on the other end was familiar, but not one I recognized immediately. Yes, I replied cautiously. This is Agent Harris. FBI. My heart skipped a beat. I've been briefed on your situation, Agent Harris continued. I know you've been dealing with a lot recently, and I'm aware of the circumstances surrounding your wife's involvement in criminal activities. I need to talk to you about what's going on. What do you mean? How do you know about all this? My mind was racing, my thoughts tumbling over each other. We've been investigating Emily for months, Mr. Carter. She's been involved in a major money laundering operation tied to several international criminal organizations. And we have reason to believe she's been using you to cover her tracks. I felt my stomach drop. What are you saying? You're saying she's been using me? That's exactly what I'm saying, Agent Harris replied. And now we need your help to bring her down. I was speechless. It felt like the floor had been ripped out from beneath me. The FBI was involved? How deep did this go? And how had Emily managed to keep this hidden from me for so long? Listen, Mr. Carter, Agent Harris said, his voice taking on a more serious tone, I know this is a lot to process, but we need your cooperation. You're in danger, but we can protect you, if you help us gather evidence to take down Emily and the people she's working for. I was quiet for a long moment, my mind swirling with conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to scream, to lash out, to confront her and demand answers. But another part of me, the part that had been played, lied to, and betrayed, felt a strange sense of relief. Maybe this was my chance to make things right. I took a deep breath. What do you need from me? Over the next few days, I worked closely with Agent Harris and the FBI to gather evidence. I had to keep up the appearance of a clueless husband, all while feeding them everything I knew about Emily's activities. It was a delicate game, but I was determined to see it through. Meanwhile, Emily had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. She thought she was untouchable. But little did she know, I was about to turn the tables on her in ways she never saw coming. And when the time came to confront her, I wouldn't be the one to back down. It was almost unbearable, the waiting. Every day felt like 1,000 years. I was playing a game I didn't want to be in, a game that threatened to destroy everything I thought I knew about myself, my life, and the woman I'd once trusted completely. But the FBI's plan was clear, I had to be patient. Let things unfold slowly. And eventually, they promised, I would have my chance to confront Emily and see her pay for what she'd done. I couldn't stop thinking about what Agent Harris had said, you're in danger, but we can protect you. Every night, I lay awake in bed, the shadow of Emily's betrayal hanging over me like a dark cloud. I didn't know who was more dangerous anymore, her or the people she was tangled up with. I had always thought I knew Emily. But the woman she'd turned out to be was nothing like the woman I had married. I wasn't the same man either. A part of me had been shattered, but another part of me had awakened, the part that no longer feared the unknown. That part was growing stronger each day. The FBI's investigation was gaining traction. Agent Harris kept me updated regularly, informing me of their progress. Emily's dealings had run deep, far deeper than I could have ever imagined. The money laundering, the under-the-table deals, the people she had put in harm's way, it was all starting to unravel. But the real shock came when they uncovered something I wasn't expecting. Emily had a backup plan. She's planning to leave town, Agent Harris told me one afternoon. We've intercepted communication suggesting she's already prepared an escape route. If she manages to get away, we may never catch her. My heart sank. Escape route? Where's she going? We don't know yet, but we have people watching her. We can't afford to let her slip through our fingers, James. We need you to keep an eye on her, get as close as you can. She won't expect you to be in on it. That's your advantage. I had no choice but to comply. The urgency was palpable. This was my chance to finally expose her for the monster she was. I began showing up at the places Emily frequented, her favorite restaurants, the upscale gym where she spent most mornings, even the coffee shop where she liked to meet clients. It was all a part of her charade, the perfect little life she'd created. Every time I saw her, it was like a stab to my chest. She was still putting on the act, still pretending that everything was fine, still acting like the woman I had fallen in love with. But I saw through it now. She couldn't fool me anymore. Then, one night, the moment I had been dreading came. Emily invited me over for dinner. She had done this a few times before, pretending like we could still be a family, pretending like the last few weeks hadn't happened. But this time felt different. The air between us crackled with tension. She was playing her part, but I could sense the unease in her. It was as if she knew the walls were closing in on her. When I arrived at her condo, she greeted me with a tight smile. Her eyes flicked nervously around, but she quickly masked it with that fake warmth she had perfected. "James, it's been a while," she said, stepping aside to let me in. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I wasn't here for small talk anymore. "Dinner's almost ready," she said, leading me into the living room. The place was as immaculate as always, perfectly staged like a magazine cover. But I wasn't fooled. Beneath the surface, everything was rotten. We sat down, and she poured us both glasses of wine. Her hand trembled slightly as she held the bottle, but she did her best to cover it up with an easy laugh. "So, how have you been?" she asked, the question sounding insincere even as it left her lips. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her, waiting. I could feel the weight of everything I had learned, everything I was about to confront her with, pressing down on me. I could tell she was getting nervous now, her gaze flickering to the door as if she were waiting for something, or someone. "Emily," I began, my voice low, calm, "do you think you can just keep lying to me forever?" Her smile faltered, and I saw a flash of fear in her eyes before she quickly regained control. "What are you talking about?" "I know everything," I said, leaning forward, my voice hardening. "I know about Crescent Heights. I know about the money laundering, about the shady deals you've been making. And I know who you're working for. You've been playing me, using me, and I'm done." For a long moment, she didn't speak. The silence between us was thick, suffocating. Her eyes darted to the door again, and that's when I knew she was stalling. She was waiting for something to happen. "What do you think you can do, James?" she finally sneered. "You can't prove anything. You're just a man who's been made a fool of by his wife. No one will believe you. I stood up suddenly, the rage boiling over inside me. You're right about one thing. No one will believe me, until I show them the truth. Before she could react, the sound of tires screeching outside caught my attention. My heart raced. I hadn't expected them to move this fast. But as I turned back to Emily, she was already scrambling toward the door, panic written all over her face. You've made a big mistake, James, she hissed, but her words came out strained, almost desperate. I don't think I've made the mistake, I said, walking toward the door and stepping into the hallway, my heart thudding with anticipation. The storm was coming. And this time, I wasn't going to be the one who got swept away. The moment I stepped outside, I saw them, the two men from the penthouse, the ones who had threatened me before. They weren't here to talk. They were here to finish what they had started. Before I could react, they grabbed me by the shoulders, shoving me into the back of a sleek black car parked outside. My heart pounded, and for a split second, I thought the worst. But just as quickly, the door slammed shut, and the car sped off. Emily's betrayal had brought me here, but it was her recklessness that was going to be her undoing. The car sped through the streets, the engine's roar drowning out the chaotic thoughts racing in my head. I had no idea where they were taking me, but I had a feeling it wasn't going to end well. My hands were tied, figuratively and literally, and the air in the car felt like it was closing in on me. But one thing I knew for sure, I wasn't going down without a fight. Not after everything Emily had done. Not after everything she'd made me believe. The two men in the front seats were silent, their faces impassive, but I could feel the tension in the air. They weren't here to talk. They were here to silence me. But what they didn't know was that I had already made my decision. They could do their worst, but they were dealing with a man who had nothing left to lose. The car screeched to a halt in an empty lot, the tires kicking up gravel as they came to a stop. The two men in the front turned back to look at me. Out, one of them ordered. His voice was cold, devoid of emotion. I didn't move immediately. I just sat there, staring at them. The air between us was thick, the kind of silence that hangs heavy before something inevitable happens. But I wasn't going to make it easy for them. I had been through too much, and I wasn't about to cower now. I know what you're trying to do, I said slowly, my voice low but steady. But you don't have a choice. You won't get away with this. The man's face darkened, but I could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. He was trying to read me, trying to figure out what my next move was. And I knew, deep down, he didn't have the answers. None of them did. He swung open the door and grabbed my arm, pulling me out roughly. I stumbled, but I quickly regained my balance, meeting his gaze with a defiance I hadn't known I still had. You think you can stop this? I asked, narrowing my eyes. You're not the ones pulling the strings. Emily is. And I know she's the one who's going to pay for everything she's done. For a moment, there was a flicker of hesitation in the man's eyes. I could see that he was considering something, perhaps wondering whether I had something up my sleeve. And I did. Before he could react, I made my move. With a swift motion, I shoved him back, using all my strength to break free. The other man lunged at me, but I was ready. I had been prepared for this moment. I wasn't just going to let them drag me back into whatever nightmare Emily had set up. A struggle ensued. It wasn't pretty, but I was fueled by a mix of fear, anger, and a deep desire for justice. I managed to land a punch on one of them, sending him stumbling back. The other tried to grab me, but I twisted out of his grip, knocking him off balance. I didn't waste time. I bolted toward the nearest exit, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Every instinct told me to run. And I ran like my life depended on it. I could hear them behind me, shouting, their footsteps pounding against the gravel as they gave chase. But I wasn't going to let them catch me. Not now. Not after everything. I reached the street, my heart racing as I looked around, searching for anything that could help. That's when I saw it, a police car, parked at the edge of the lot. I didn't hesitate. I ran toward it, my breath coming in short bursts, my legs aching, but I pushed through. The officer inside the car saw me approaching and quickly opened the door. "Hey, what's going on?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "They're after me." I gasped, pointing behind me. "Two men, they're working for my wife. She's in danger. I need help." Without missing a beat, the officer grabbed his radio and called for backup. "Stay with me," he said, pulling me into the car. "We'll handle it from here." Within minutes, the scene was swarming with police. The two men who had chased me were apprehended, their plans unraveling as quickly as they had tried to execute them. I watched from a safe distance, my chest heaving, as the officers took control of the situation. I had done it. I had survived. The next few hours felt like a blur. The police had gathered all the evidence they needed, and Emily's name was now tied to something far bigger than I had ever imagined. The woman I had once loved was now a fugitive, wanted for her involvement in a vast criminal enterprise. But the worst part? I had been her pawn. Her most loyal accomplice in her twisted game. As I sat in the back of the police car, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything in my life had been a lie. The person I thought I knew, the woman I had spent years building a future with, she was nothing like the person I had imagined. But even in the chaos, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. Emily's betrayal had shattered me, yes. But it had also shown me something important. It showed me the strength I never knew I had. It reminded me that no matter how deep the wound, there was always a chance for recovery. And the best part? I was in control now. Later that night, after all the dust had settled, I sat in my apartment, staring at the phone in my hand. I hadn't spoken to Rebecca in days, but now I needed to. She had been my lifeline through all of this, and I owed her more than words could express. I dialed her number, and she picked up almost immediately. "James? Are you okay?" "I'm alive," I said simply. "But that's all that matters." "You did it," she said, her voice filled with relief. "You got her." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Yeah. But it's not over yet. She's gone, but I'll be dealing with the aftermath for a long time." There was a pause on the other end. "You'll be okay," she said finally. "You're stronger than you think." And in that moment, I believed her.